Well, welcome again to the Rockstar Academy and one of our expert interviews. And we are excited and we are thrilled and we are just pumped and we are, I don't know, throwing your own adjectives here to talk to Dr. Todd Dewett. And Dr. Dewett is an author, speaker, coach, recovering management professor is what he calls himself. He's been a consultant. He's a Harley Davidson nuts. He's covered in tattoos. He's bald, as you can see. He's very fun to talk to, and we're going to talk to Dr. Todd Dewett today about self-expression and how that plays into how big of a rock star that you are and can become. So welcome to this expert interview, Todd.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. Kudos for all you're doing with the Rockstar Academy and these interviews as well.
Well, I appreciate it. Appreciate you being here because I've been following you for quite a while, and I love the work that you do. I love how you do it, too, and I think that's just as important because when we talk about expressing ourselves and we talk about being authentic and genuine, you're one of those people that I've run into over the past couple of years that I really feel embodies that. So that's exciting. So you called yourself a recovering professor, and I know that you were a professor at Wright State University, and I know you had all kinds of accolades there, and you did all kinds of great things and taught leadership among other things. What prompted this move to leave the world of academia and launch off to be a full-time speaker and author?
Well, it's a great question. Certainly nothing negative. I loved being a professor. I loved being a part of Wright State University and the business school there. I simply think it ran its course, and what I started wanting to do in middle life more and more was to genuinely touch people, to affect people, to have a positive impact on people. And in the classroom, I was doing that as a scholar. I still think I did a little bit of that, but very, very unexpectedly, I discovered the world of speaking. And you've had the misfortune of watching me several times, Mark. What I learned after doing that for a few years was that if you'll really take that craft seriously, it has an ability to genuinely reach out and touch people in a positive way. Not just that day emotionally, but when they go back to the office and start looking at their team and their careers and making different and better choices. When I learned that was possible, I couldn't believe you could get paid to do that. And frankly, it started a new career for me.
Well, and you're certainly a success story there too, just following your progress and seeing how people just are flocking to you and your message. I think it's a testimony to kind of who you are and what you're doing and the message that you're providing. So being a management professor and now being a full-time author and speaker, you've made a transition and you've had to, in a sense, reinvent yourself. But at the same time, you've remained kind of true to who you are in that process. Whether you were in the classroom or you're on stage or you're writing, I think it comes across loud and clear kind of what your personality is, who you are. And as we talk in the Rockstar Academy about purpose a lot and how that means being fully engaged, fully connected, fully expressed, and always improving, I wanted to learn from you a little bit about the idea of expression because I think you can speak to this probably better than anybody I've ever met. So tell me about, the fact I kind of laughingly said that, you're bald, you're covered in tattoos, you're outspoken. How has that played into your success in the classroom, outside the classroom, as a speaker, and in your life in general?
It's an interesting point, interesting question. It's fun and easy and a part of my career that's very, very positive, and people find it interesting. Wasn't always that way, and so what your folks watching this need to hear, especially your aspiring leaders or young leaders, is that being fully expressionate, being fully authentic, fully who you are, is a beautiful thing. It's also not risk-free. Sometimes, for example, when I was a 20-something and I started my collection of ink, people would look at you funny, just like my dad said they would. Mm-hmm. They look at you funny, and they still have that stigma about who gets tattoos, and it's not a good thing they're often thinking. And in fact, my dad said I was going to ruin my career once I started getting tattoos, and this is back when I was working for the Andersons and the Ernst & Youngs. And you know what? My dad was kind of right. When you're younger, call it the first third of your career, and you start doing things that are not normal. For example, in this conversation, we're talking about tats, but anything that's not normal, that's a risk, and you have to be aware of that. Now, here's the thing. It's one of my favorite punchlines to share with people of any age, especially youngsters and aspiring leaders. It is amazing what you can get away with in terms of being comfortable fully expressing yourself to the extent that you're really good at what you do and are also seen as a person with great character and integrity. When you put those together, great expertise and being seen with legit integrity, it's amazing the idiosyncratic credits, if you will, people will give you to be exactly who you want to be. You know why? Because they don't care about your fun, creative quirks. They love the value that you add. So one of the ways I look at answering that question is to say this to anyone who's listening and still young or relatively young in their career. You really should think about the first third, give or take, of your career as the time that you learn something that makes you an expert, that you add value, that makes you a desirable expert, because you know what? That earns you the right in the back 2/3 of your career to be more fully exactly who you want to be.
And we always talk about how, why rock stars get away with the things that they get away with and they get the special treatment they get. It's because they're rock stars. That's why. It's not the other way around. It's exactly what you said. It's the fact that they've earned that place because of their performance.
Correct.
So I appreciate you sharing that. Has it ever backfired on you? I mean, you said earlier in your career, especially when you're working for the Arthur Andersons and Ernst & Young kind of people, any specific examples of not just the tattoos, because I know we kind of joke about the tattoos, but you have more about you than that. I mean, you're a very outspoken person. You're very kind of genuine and authentic in the way that you talk to people even. Does that ever backfire on you?
Absolutely, positively, it does. I mean, I would be lying if I said that trying to embrace being the real you, fully expression it is always safe. It's just not. And tattoos are fun to talk about. And yes, the title of my next book will be Show Your Ink. Having said that, it's just a hook, a way for me to get people in audiences, on blogs, etc., to think about what for them might be some more interesting, authentic version of who they are. One of them, for almost all of us, is speaking up more candidly and boldly in our lives and in our careers when we want to. That's a big part of being a more authentic version of us. And to your question, oh yeah, that absolutely brings risks. If you want to be, and you mentioned Right State, one of my favorite courses I used to teach was creativity and innovation, managing creativity and innovation, and another one on org change and development. One of the themes in there was talking about what it means to find and develop and nurture change agents. And when you think about bold people trying to speak up when they want to, it sounds glorious. We actually kind of over-romanticize these people in the business press. I was one of them. I was a big old change agent when I still had a paycheck as a professor, believe me. Here's what the truth is they never tell you, or certainly you have to dig harder before you find writers and commentators who will tell you this. Truth is that if you want to be a principled, butt-kicking change agent, you will polarize. You will have people that go, wow, look at him go. You're right. We need to be moving in that direction. I don't care how hard it is. And you will have other people that go, man, I am tired of that person constantly rocking the boat. Why don't they just settle down? You will polarize, and it's very important to throw that out there. If you want to be super successful, it's about changing things. And changing things means that you will upset a few apple carts.
It's funny you said rocking the boat, because that was going through my mind about how some people feel like it's full speed ahead, and other people feel like it's rocking the boat, or even slowing you down as an organization. They don't want that upset. And it's not always about doing things differently. Sometimes it's just about standing up for what you believe, and sometimes it's about introducing new ideas. Sometimes it's about speaking honestly about a situation when nobody else will.
Correct. I mean, what we know psychologically about teams and organizations is that they often suppress and push people towards mediocre norms of behavior that are quote unquote safe and don't really threaten the system. And there's actually oddly some upside to that. Having said that, for people who believe in change, who believe that they want their team and their organization to not only be in existence next quarter, but to be awesomely different in 5 years, you're going to have to face the risks of saying and doing things that not everyone will enjoy.
So when you do that, not only can it, one form of backfiring, I guess, is that you get shot down a lot. So how do you handle that? How do you handle that sort of rejection and that backfiring and that, that the no's that come along with trying to stick your neck out a little bit?
Well, I can tell you what I think you should do as a skill, no matter where your personality is. But the truth is, you have to start answering that question by addressing personality. Everyone's wired differently. Some of us are more able to process non-affirmative feedback than other people. Some people take failure on the chin and it crushes them. What we know about most successful people is not that they're oblivious to negative feedback and no's. What we think about them, or what we know about them, is that they tend to take that feedback in stride, in perspective, and figure out ways to use it and process it instead of being fearful of it and discounting it and forgetting it. So I've had many no's. I'll pick on myself just to self-deprecate, Mark. I've become, and I'm just thrilled and blessed to say this, a good speaker. I think I'm going to be a great one by the time I'm done in 20 years. I have not yet become a world-class writer. Guys like you have been so kind to me in a few blog spaces, which is wonderful. As far as my book writing ability goes, it's good, and I'm selling some copies. It's not world class like I'm becoming as a speaker. And you know what? Saying that's crazy, right? I'm sitting here talking to you. People could see this. I could hurt my book sales. No, it's a hilarious, normal part of learning. And when I talk to young leaders about reaching their dreams, and they're usually not afraid to dream audaciously. They are often afraid to fail audaciously. And what leaders have to do is model the way. So when I joke about, in a self-deprecating way, the fact that I'm good, but not as good as I want to be as a writer, everybody who aspires to anything that resembles greatness, believe me, better embrace that as well, because you will stumble and fall along the way. That's guaranteed. The only question is how you choose to process that, learn from that, use that.
So I forgot to mention your book. I said you were an author, but I forgot to mention the book. The Little Black Book of Leadership is what it's called. Your first book. You're working on your second book, which you said was called
Show Your Ink.
Show Your Ink. Now, talk about that for a second. As we talk about expressing yourself and being authentic and genuine, it's not about having tattoos, and it's not about having the same personality that you have or that I have. We like to be on stage, and we like to kind of stick our neck out. It's kind of who we are. But not everybody's like that. So what do you mean by show your ink then?
Well, it's about being real, and that sounds so simple, it's almost trite, and it's not. I want people to stop and think about what that means. Now, what we know as scholars who study folks in cubes is that when they see a leader who looks to them more authentically complete, able to talk about their competence and their accomplishments, but also willing and able to laugh at themselves, show some of their personal interest, and be thus a more complete person, followers will stick with a guy or a woman like that a lot longer through a lot more adversity than a person who simply remains professionally sterile, hiding behind a label, I'm the boss, here's my title, and I clearly separate work life from private life. Those people usually have more mediocre teams. Now, we keep coming back to the tat things, but the reason I got stuck on this issue and made it the title of the book is because many years ago, when I first started speaking, I had lunch with an old friend, and this was a guy I knew in high school. And you know how people in high school, they know a lot about you. They know all your skeletons. This guy knew me as a very casual person, so do you, Mark. And I sat down for lunch with this guy, but I had just come from a speaking engagement. So I'm wearing a nice snazzy jacket because when I started speaking, I was smart and I wanted to be able to meet the expectations of corporate audiences. And so I wanted to look like a professional and an adult, and I wore a nice jacket. I sat down in my jacket, and my old friend almost immediately started laughing at me. I'm like, what are you laughing at? And he says, well, that's a snazzy jacket you got there, Todd. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know and I know you're not a suit guy. You're not a formal guy. Why are you wearing that? And I explained to him what I just said to you. And then he said something that kind of changed my life and led to this book I'm writing. He said, you might be right that you're socially smart to try and meet their expectations. But, and he paused with great effect, and he said, I'll bet you if you'll take your jacket off and show them some ink by rolling up your sleeves that they'll like you even more. And I thought that sounded odd and reckless. And I thought about it more and more and more. I sat there, I finally said to him, explain it. Why is that true? And he said something that was awesome. He said, because people like real. And I've been thinking about that for a long time. In fact, it's now the cornerstone of most of the things I teach and preach, whether it's a blog or on stage. And now I have to say the obvious, which is it's, of course, not about ink. It's about finding that part of you felt compelled to not share professionally that might, in fact, be appropriate and help others see you as a more complete human and not just a label such as the leader.
You know, one of the things I think is interesting about that is that it's a different way of looking at it than I'm showing you my ink to show you how different I am from you. You know, which I think is what a lot of people do, especially when they're trying to find their way in the world. They're just trying to be as different as they can. instead of saying, I'm trying to be who I am,
Correct.
more or less out of respect for you and me at the same time. And when you do that, I think that's when people connect. It's when you throw it in their face to show them how different you are, or how cool you are, or how tough you are, whatever it is. One thing I've noticed recently is there's a whole new breed of experts and speakers and authors that just seem to be incredibly loose with their language. They swear, they use all kinds of vulgar examples,
Right.
and it's almost that sort of, well, let me just show you how independent I am. Let me show you that I'm just being loose and real here. And I think sometimes it works because it is who they are, and other times I think they're just trying to prove some point.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. You'll see that battle go on in the world of comedians, for example.
Exactly,
all the
yeah.
time. Writers in our space are no different either. I'm kind of in between, leading towards your world. I like a little snark and a little edge, and I also don't want to be offensive and get too explicit. So I'm kind of in the middle, but the point's a good point. And I wouldn't lie to you. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't tell you that when I was 19 and I got my first tattoo, it really wasn't an interesting moment of expression. It was a ridiculous, look at me, and a big, hand raised to authority and all of that. And you know what? If you're lucky, you grow. And you and I are in the business of trying to make growing a useful, fun, productive thing for ourselves and for others. And I'm happy to say I am north of 40 and still growing like heck. And that thing that I did in rebellion at 19 has become a far different beast today. Today, for me, it's an expression. It's an authentic art form that I take as a part of who I am. And it's all about authenticity, not about, hey, look at me.
So you mentioned kind of learning and growing, and being past 40. I'm in the same decade with you, and part of what we're trying to do with the Rockstar Academy and these expert interviews is maybe cut that learning curve down for other people. I mean, that's how you and I learn from other people who have been ahead of us, and we're trying to help other people around us, behind us, that are trying to learn. So your lessons, I think, are fantastic for people that are trying to find their way, as well as all of the leadership work you do. So I think it goes a long way across the board. One thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up is a blog post that you wrote, and the title of it was, "Most leaders should be fired and most employees don't deserve their paycheck." And I think I might have written you back and just said yes or something like that when I first read that. Tell me, why do most leaders deserve to be fired?
Yeah, harsh statement. Maybe it's an overplay, but it gets your attention. Here's the truth. Truth is that most leaders are well-intentioned but not very skilled, and they really don't appreciate and understand what it means psychologically to look at their employees, even in a basic sense, and look at their teams and think about team dynamics, team chemistry, what it means to be a great communicator, what it means to motivate effectively, what it means to be a supportive servant-like leader. These basic notions to you, I'm telling you, and you know this, are very foreign to many practicing leaders who in fact got their jobs not because they showed any leadership skill, but because they knew the right people, they were well networked, and or they were really good technicians at whatever functional area they came from, and so someone made the erroneous decision to promote them, which is wrong, because the skill set from being a great accountant, for example, to being a leader of accountants is a completely different skill set. So most leaders do not understand what it means to run a team. A lot of people think that we're into this new age, new enlightened space for thinking about leadership, and I like to say, you know what, you're kind of right. We've made a lot of strides in the last few decades, and there are exemplars that we see in the press and in our experiences that are heartening, that are awesome. But that doesn't change this fact. The average leader and the average team is still archaic, barbaric. They have no clue what they're doing. That's why I have a job. So the first thing I say is don't get ahead of yourselves. Most leaders are still not that good. Then I think I said something in that title about employees as well. Want me to address that?
Yeah, you said employees don't deserve their paycheck. Why not?
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
My employees do. I have Rockstar employees. They deserve it. But I know there's probably a lot of people out there who don't.
I've met your team. They're great. So here's the truth. A lot of people hear me riff about leaders needing to improve. They think I'm pro-employee and I hate leaders. But a lot of people don't know I do both sides. Both sides of that equation. Employees and leaders both have lots of room for improvement. And you got to understand that great teams are about a dance. And a dance takes two people, the leader and the team. So we've got to talk about both. Most employees, unfortunately, in the last few decades, by the way, leaders are complicit in this, have absolutely become entitled. I hate to use such a word that's got all these political implications, but I'm not thinking about politics. I'm thinking about life at work. What we've done is replaced the gold standard idea, which is that we reward excellence. That's the idea that defined great teams up until the last few decades. We've replaced that with we reward almost anything. You've probably heard me rant on stage what we do to kids and how bad it is about giving them trophies. Why do we give them trophies? We give them trophies because they breathe, not because they are truly excellent. We give participation points out the yin-yang. We've been doing that so long that nice business owners, just like you, Mark, are now hiring people, and you run the risk of hiring one that's a trophy employee, and they think that just showing up on time is somehow meritorious behavior, and that is a wrong, bad standard that's got to go bye-bye. So I think we do a horrible job vetting leaders and training leaders on average, and I think the average employee has no idea how hard it is to be a great leader, which is why they shouldn't make fun of leaders so quickly, and they've forgotten what it means to truly earn something. They think they're simply entitled.
Yep, we have been there, done that. I've had employees like that, and they don't last very long here because we just don't have a trophy to hand out every day. You know what I mean? It's too expensive to keep that many trophies around.
Very well.
So give me your best advice. In today's workplace, how do you be a rock star leader first, and then how do you be a rock star employee? Just, if you got one or two must-do things to achieve that, what are those things?
Sure, I'll give you the very, very short answer. To be a rock star leader, I think you've got to make a very serious decision in the first couple of years of your career. Do you want to be 70 and retiring and say to yourself, I really avoided catastrophe. I avoided derailing. I avoided massive failure, which is what most people do. It's about 99% of the folks. Or do you want to be 70 and say to yourself, you know what? I had some huge wins. I also had some embarrassing failures, but darn it, I had fun because I tried at every legit opportunity I saw to really improve things for myself and the organizations I worked with. Which one of those two do you want? There is no perfect answer. I can tell you that the second option I gave you, that's the group of people that changes the world. And if you want to be in that group, then you've got to get your hands around what it means to deal with voluntary risks in your career, more so than people who play it safe. That's the first thing I'd say to the aspiring rock star. Now, if you're going to be an employee and you want to become a great leader, let alone a rock star leader, you got to do a couple things. Number one, put out in the first quarter, first third of your career, a seriously above average work ethic. You're going to learn by the nature of doing so much more than you ever imagined. Number one, be that person with the clearly awesome work ethic. Second and final thing I would give for a short answer to the employees, you've got to demonstrate that you're clearly out for helping, improving others, helping the team achieve, not just yourself. You put in a serious work ethic, which helps you build skills, and you build the we more than you build the I, you're the type of person current rock star leaders will take note of.
Fantastic advice. Thank you very much. What's next for you? I know you're a busy man. You're writing a new book and you're speaking all over the place. And I know you blog, like your blog goes all over and you're out there multiple places. I mean, you're like the busiest dude that I've ever seen right now.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate it, Mark. I'm always busy, always writing for a lot of different blogs, including my own, and on occasion, folks like you ask for posts. By the way, if you can find that old Halloween post, your listeners are wondering what I'm talking about. I want to see that Halloween post.
I will send it to you. Now, in fact, I'll repost it because when we're recording this, it's Halloween time.
Perfect.
And it is, I have to brag on Dr. Dewett here because he wrote a post about Halloween, celebrating Halloween in the workplace, that kind of thing, which did a couple of things. One, it was for the longest time our most viewed blog post, which was fantastic. And it also prompted me to say, I love Halloween. Why am I holding back? So we invest more and more in our Halloween decorations for our lobby. Our lobby here at Sparkspace has turned into a haunted house, and we do it the entire month of October. And part of it was because of that post and how you inspired us there. So what else for you? What else is going on?
Thank you. That's why writing is fun. You have a chance to make people think. Working on the next book, always working on the next blog post. I love that. Aside from writing, of course, is speaking. I continue to do gigs around the country. Love that. Hope that always grows and grows. I continue to do more and more work with lynda.com. I don't know if your listeners have ever encountered lynda.com. It's LYNDA.com. Fascinating educational company online that makes courses. Their little motto is, you can learn it. And I'm kind of their go-to leadership guy, having a lot of fun making courses with them.
And those are video courses? that you're doing
All
there?
video courses. They take published experts in different areas and they put them in high quality production studios to create online bite-sized, fairly bite-sized learning opportunities. Really, really neat company. Couple hundred million in revenue. #1 in their space. You should check them
Wow.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. It's a good thing you're a
Beyond that,
good-looking guy because, you know, video does well for you.
I prefer to say I'm interesting. I do own a mirror. I know what I look like. I look interesting. Okay. So aside from that, which is enough, I'm still, cross your fingers for me, Mark, still talking to some production people in the television world about some reality programs that they might want me to host. So those are long shots in that world, but it's kind of fun to even be asked to the dance. So I've got a lot of irons in the fire.
Oh, can't wait to see that. Well,
Thanks.
everybody, this is Dr. Todd Dewett. He is the foremost expert on leadership that I know, and one of the foremost experts on leadership and team development in the entire country. His book is called The Little Black Book of Leadership. His new book is called Show Your Ink, which will be out when?
Great question. In the near future.
In the near future. All right, we won't nail you down on that. Todd, thank you so much for being one of our expert interviews for the Rockstar Academy.
My pleasure. Keep up the good work.